And now we have quorum. We have our committee members, Marcel, Cheryl Lebois, Uba Farah, who are directors of the corporation, who are tenants, myself, City Councilor Paula Fletcher, and two excused members of our committee today. That would be Debbie Douglas and Councilor Francis Nunziata. So thank you very much, everybody who's joining us from public and from TCHC staff. And we also, I believe, may have city staff here because there are great coordinated efforts that are being undertaken between the city and TCHC around reducing violence in TCHC communities. So thank you very much for all your work getting us to here today, to the staff. And Dara, if that's it, can I start with the agenda?
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much. Can I have here the agenda as you see it in front of us is conflict of interest, confirmation of the meeting minutes, business arising, review of our charter, and the number 7 violence reduction program update. I understand we have one debutant on item number 7. Thank you for being here. And I will just start with approval of this agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Marcel, thank you very much. All in favor? Thank you. And then I'll ask if any members have a conflict of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Seeing everybody saying no, thank you very much. And then business arising from the public meeting minutes of the last meeting. Is there anything that anyone would like to, shall we walk through that? We have in November 15th, we looked at a little more information about the communities as far as their designations, and we now have that reported here today. That's item number 1. It will be on our agenda today. And then also we wanted a list of, we'll call them shooting events in the VRP sites, the current VRP sites that were identified in 2018, broken down, and we have that in front of us today. So that is business arising. I think that, Dara, all of those things are on our agenda. So would we just receive this report for information then? There's no action to be taken on any of the items. You're muted. I've wanted to say that. I've wanted to say that to you for a long time because you're never muted. Yes.
Yes, that's correct. We just need a motion. We do need a motion at the same time to approve the minutes of the last public meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry. I jumped over that. My apologies. Okay, let's do that one. We'll just confirm the minutes from the March 24th, 2022 meeting. Uba, can you move that, please? All right. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And then we'll receive for information number 5, the business arising from the public meeting. And Marcel, can you move that? Thank you. Great. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. So that brings us to the review of the charter. And I just asked if anybody's got any comments. Or Dara, did you want to make any comments about it ahead of time? The term says to be determined, so that's really up to us to recommend, or I'm not sure how that works with the carryover.
It is. So very high level. A review of the committee charter is a best practice that we follow within the organization on an annual basis. It gives the committee and the board opportunities to consider whether they want to make any adjustment to the charter, its own charter, or the charter of any of its committees. When the Community Safety Advisory Subcommittee was first established a year ago, it was established with the intention, and this is the only piece that I would highlight in the document that you have before you this morning, as a temporary subcommittee or a committee. The term in the charter document, which is at page 11 of the package you have this morning, is highlighted because at the time that the committee was established, that was still to be determined. And so we're just flagging for the committee that it may want to provide advice and direction, or advice to the board as to what its view is an appropriate term for its business would be, or whether it wants to have the board revisit the decision to establish it as a temporary committee, and alternatively have the board consider whether it wants to make it a permanent part of our governance structure. And if it was going to provide advice as to a term, the question would be, is that term fixed by a date, which may be arbitrary, or a piece of work that the committee would continue until such time as a certain piece of work was concluded? And with that, I think we were simply looking for advice and direction from committee members as to how they would want us to approach that, or to consider what advice the committee wants to give TSC and the board.
And just to clarify, Dara, it would be TSC that, or the board that would make that determination around the life of the committee.
So
Since it's a subcommittee. No, I'm unclear. Yeah.
The reason I mentioned TSC is that you see in the term and deliverables portion of the charter at the top that the committee is described as a time-limited and not intended to be permanent subcommittee of the Tenant Services Committee. So we would bring the charter matter to Tenant Services and then up to the board.
Okay, so Marcel, Debbie, any questions or comments about kind of the term or advice that we give back to CSU, TSC? There's so many initials, I get mixed up with them sometimes. Could we say that I think when we were established, we had three big pieces of work, if I can recall them: the organizational chart and the VRP, the categorization of communities and how that would assist, and then the CSU review and the Neptune 4. I'm not sure there's been other pieces added in. I think most of the agenda items have fit under those three areas, Dara. Would I be right to say that?
Yes, I think that's correct.
So would we be able to suggest that this committee would remain until those pieces of work were continued, and then review if there's any further need for such a committee? Would that make sense? I'm not looking at you. I'm just going to look at Nadia if that's helpful or not.
Councillor Fletcher, the only thing I would add is we've also been putting the VRP reports through that committee outside of the three items. So I just wanted to flag that. But the input has been helpful for sure.
I think if I can, the VRP kind of rose out of the categorization, and that maybe they're not completely aligned. So they've come in now to that larger community safety bucket, community by community. But thank you for raising that. You're right. So if we could articulate that a little more clearly, if you'd like to leave that there, I think we might like to leave that there for the time being while we continue with the community work. So is that something that we could do in that way, Dara?
We can draft something for the Tenant Services Committee and the board to consider in that regard, and then Madam Chair, I'm happy to circulate that to you as a pre-read before we get to Tenant Services, so you can make sure that we have the language right.
Yes, I'm going to flag I might not be at Tenant Services. I think we have every city committee is almost doubled up in its times now as we come to the last council meeting of the year. So I think I'm double booked that day with community council, but that's fine. If you do that, somebody can move that, and then the term would be amended in that way. Then, right?
Correct.
We're amending the term. Okay, that's great. So, Uba, do you want to move that we amend the term along the lines that I said, and Dara will provide that language to TSC, please? Thank you. Moved by Uba, all in favor. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, and then on to the item 7, which is the VRP program update, Q1, 2022. Thank you. With a number of things. So I don't know, is that me and my mic that's making that noise, or is it somebody calling user 4? Marcel, your mic's open. If there's open mics, we're just getting the feedback like that. Sonia has an open mic. There we go. Okay. Thank you. And I understand it's, can you bring our first debutant or our only debutant on today, please, Dara. Thank you.
Yes, we have Mr. Avila Velarde to depute in relation to item 7. I believe Mr. Avila Velarde is on the line.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Avila Velarde. You have your 5 minutes. I'll let you know when you're getting close, when you're at 4. I think you see the show timer. Okay, thanks so much for being with us today.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. I'm glad to speak on item 7, violence reduction program. Last June 9, I missed an opportunity to speak at the Tenant Services Committee regards to the operation performance measures on page 11.
Miguel, could you just speak
Yes.
closer to your microphone because it's a little hard to
Oh,
hear.
okay.
And I'll stop your time. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
All right. Can you hear me better now?
Yes, better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So as I was saying, thank you for the opportunity to speak on this item with the violence reduction program update. I want to speak on the page 5 with regards to the Region Park. TCHC wants to ensure that staff are doing a better job of incorporating tenants' youth voices into meetings that take place in Region Park. The Region Park Safety Network is part of the social development and planning of the Region Park community. And the voices of the youth are essential to the overall improving of the community. Some youth have told the staff they do not feel safe in certain meeting spaces due to individual agencies sitting on some of these meetings and how they are facilitated. We are working diligently to find solutions to ensure that they are being heard. I want to thank the staff. In particular, I want to mention 2 names, Jerome and Jamal, because they're doing progressive work in Region Park to ensure that the voices of the youth are being considered and heard. That is wonderful to have a staff that really cares about my community. So I'm trying to avoid to say personal names, but I from my heart, I want to thank you that you are open and progressive. So here's the situation I want to say as well, that on June the 9th, I missed an opportunity to speak on item 7D, which was regarding the performance measures of the TCHC. So I understand that from hearing from community safety unit officers is that vendors appear not to live to the expectations of the contract to provide prompt repairs when CSU staff put service order requests. So this is problematic to learn, because I understand when calls are received for repairs, they're taking us as they come as they are received. So if someone put something to repair for 220 Oak, depending on the order of arrival, it can take a couple of months for repair. So please, through this committee, I want to ensure that my ask is simple. Please review the contract with your vendors about the repairs, so that there's any gaps in the service delivery, then they may meet the standards of service, so that we don't have to worry about if our cameras are working. And going back to the deputation, item 5, page 5 on item 7, the Region Park Safety Network will conduct a safety walk. And I want to ask the staff, how can we ask the residents who are sitting at this committee be able to have an audit of the cameras in particular troublesome buildings like 220 Oak Street? I would like to see what cameras are really operating, which aren't working, because I heard also they are choppy and some they have interrupted gaps. So that is one of my concerns. And the last request and ask, please, we need more cameras at 220 Oak Street at the ends of the hallways. There seems to be a gap for coverage. I provided a picture to the Tenant Services Committee members to illustrate what's going on. So that is all my deputation for today.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much for that. And you're right, you even have a little time left. Thank you so much. Are there any questions for Mr. Avila? No? Thank you. Thank you very much for that. I'm going to ask about the cameras later for 220 Oak and how you have your input into that in a second. Thank you. The report's now in front of us. Are there some questions or observations from you, Uba or Marcel, before I ask my questions? Yes? No? Okay. I'm just going to ask, starting with Mr. Avila's question. He indicated there's a gap in a hallway for a camera that he feels would be helpful. Outside of coming here to make that request, what are the mechanisms that the community members or that are on the community team can identify some of those locations locally? And
yes, Madam Chair, it's Al Britton, the Acting Senior Director in the Community Safety Unit. Good morning. Yes, in answer to that question, any tenant could contact myself or our investigations team. The CSAs, the Community Safety Advisors, do reviews upon requests or during their safety audits where they review all camera locations and any need for future cameras. So we could certainly reach out to Mr. Avila and have further discussions. We have had some with him in the past. We can definitely discuss where these blind spots are, I guess you would call them, and see what we can do to rectify those.
that would be great. Thank you. And then on the attachment 1, which is the event and times for basically shooting related incidents over a 4-year period. Thank you for putting that together. That's what we'd asked for. And I think that I think it'd be helpful if everybody just had this by community. I don't know if we, rather than by time. So it's always great to have a running order starting at the 18, which the VRP started, but putting them together by the communities that are in here. So is that possible to do that, Mr. Britton, or whoever is in charge of this? I'm sure it's all in Excel, right?
That's correct, Madam Chair. We can definitely sort it by the method that you mentioned.
Because that's how we have the VRP communities lined up. So I think it's a little easier to put the apples to the apples that way and see what's happened with these VRP communities. And then these are the VRP communities that the CSU had identified in 2018, and we had the special program, correct?
That is correct.
And I don't know if we have any comparators pre-18. Do we have any?
Not during this particular search here, no, but we could definitely go back further if you would like.
We have 2 chunks. Once we have the communities, it's helpful to see that, I think, because really just oversight on which way are things trending. That's all we're really interested in. And if they're trending the right way, then everything's right. And if they're not trending the right way or stay the same, what needs to get shifted in order to meet the safety needs of each community? And I guess some of the other communities that have been identified, how are they, I'm going to ask you, Nadia, how are they going to get into the mix? This is the formal VRP program. And some of the other communities that have identified as high needs concerning gun violence and incidents, how will they get into this larger mix?
So Chair Fletcher, thank you for that question. The plan is to align the new VRP locations with category 3 and 4 buildings by Q3 of this year. So the discussions are happening between Liqua Ancala, Director of Programs and Partnerships. I was going to say Director Liqua, but are happening between Liqua and Al's team to look at transitioning from the current locations and doing so in a way that doesn't create additional hardship for those communities now. So I mentioned in the last meeting, we don't want to create a vacuum effect. So we're looking at our summer safety enhancement services right now, and the hope is to transition by Q4 into the new sites. So Q3 will be the transitional period. Lakwa, did you have anything to add to that?
Just that we're going to be working with Al and his team as part of that categorization work to really map out where and how we're going to make those movements.
And then some of them are, of course, in concentrated areas. They're not, there's central, west, east, but some of them are very concentrated within the region. So that might make that easier once you've consolidated, right?
Yes, and Councillor Fletcher, we do have a model for that. That's how we did our summer safety intervention last year. So it wasn't based on just developments, it was based on sort of concentrated areas. And I think that will probably help to design how we roll out the category 3s and 4s.
Great, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. Anything further? Uba, Marcel? No? In which case I'll just say thank you for this ongoing great work as we parse out the data, and hopefully I'm finding it very helpful. I hope that you are as well. I think we'll be, if once we get this run Excel to see where the majority of, the biggest problems are, it would be helpful to run the 3s and 4s in the same way. This is very much associated with reduction of violence. Particularly this is related to shooting incidents. And then, of course, there's those locations that experience violence because the communities are extremely vulnerable and they have a number of different issues which aren't necessarily related to gun violence, and being able to do them separately, because I think not only from the CSU response, but from the overall package that each sector gets, they're tailored more to the issues that are found in those communities. I think I'm hoping you agree with that, Ms. Gouveia.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so continue the fine tuning and the great work. Unless there's something else here today, is there anything else anyone on the committee needs to bring up? No? Anything else, Jag, or anyone that wants to have anything here, or we just conclude the meeting, adjourn, and everybody gets back to the very important things that they're doing. And thanks again to you and your staff, Jag, for your tremendous efforts around Swansea and getting that sorted out. I think we're all cheering for you and for the tenants. Okay. Thank you. Hearing that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn. Uba? Oh, Marcel, everybody, all of us. Okay. Thank you very much. All in favor, opposed, it's adjourned. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone.